Hello and welcome back to Retfurb. So back again with another seat refurb. So this is a Fizik Nisene. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's the way I'm saying it anyway. So getting straight into it, I'm removing the lower trims, which are just screwed on, and then we can get the leather covering off, which is the main aim of the video, to replace the leather covering. Now it doesn't look too bad when you first look at it. There is a small hole on one of the sides of it, but as we get further in, you'll see that the leather's actually not in that great condition. It's stuck on there really well, and it takes me a little while to try and peel it off. You can see here I'm just trying to get it started, but straight away it starts to rip. So obviously the leather covering is obviously needing to be done. It's aged over the years and just gone dry and starting to crack. So it's best to do it now. So I'm going to be putting a nice black leather on there, make it look nice and fresh again. And hopefully, yeah, it will last a lot longer then. So you can see I'm just working my way around, just peeling off the edges. Ideally, you'd want it to come off in one lump, but due to the fact that it's old leather, it's just splitting and ripping, which is not ideal. It makes it harder, but it is stuck down really well on there. So with this, you do need to be careful as you're peeling it off not to pull too much foam off. The more foam you pull off, the harder it'll be afterwards to prep it for the new leather, because you'll have to sand it down even more. You don't want to be taking any big chunks off because you need to sand down further. So ideally just taking your time peeling it off. Now most of the time when I'm doing it, they come off relatively easy and there's only a small amount of sanding. You might need to get a blade sometimes underneath the leather to remove it from the foam. Again, taking care when you're doing this because you don't want to take any big chunks off. You can see there that little bit as I'm pulling up there, it's just pulling off a bit of foam. It's not much, it's probably only, I don't know, not even a millimetre, I doubt, and it just looks worse than what it is. There is a few places as I'm peeling it off that do take the odd chunk out of it, so I do need to sand that back afterwards, but we'll get to that part shortly. So almost there with removing the actual leather off the seat, and then we can get into sanding it down. Any sort of lumps and stuff you can just trim off gently as I am here with the blade. So that's the leather covering removed, and now we can get straight into sanding it. It's not too bad, to be honest. I just need to go over with the belt sander. This is the perfect tool when you're shaping foam. I use it a lot for this sort of thing, and it's perfect. You do need to be a little bit careful, like I've said in other videos. You don't want to get it to snag and then take chunks out and then you have to go further. So you just need to sort of go over as gently as you can, bit by bit. Keep checking it, you know, don't go too mad with it and then check it afterwards and you've gone too far. You're best off just checking it and making sure that it's going the way you want it to be going as you're sort of doing it. So I'm just gently going around, just removing any of those small little digs that I sort of managed to get once I removed the leather. As I said before, it wasn't too bad, to be honest. I'm just going over it very gently. I think it's 120 grade sanding belt that I've got on this sander, which is perfect for doing this. It might sound a bit coarse, but it's ideal when you're doing this sort of thing. And you can obviously go over with something like a 120 piece of sandpaper on your hand and just gently go over. It takes a long time to do it that way, but you can do it just to finalise it. I wouldn't say go over the whole lot of it. It'll take you a while to do that. So that's it, that's all the foam now prepped, and now we can look at getting the leather fitted. You can see that now it's nice and uniform, it's nice and smooth, there's no sort of major bumps and stuff on there. Obviously you will have a little bit of bumps on it, you know, it's inevitable, but it's not anything noticeable. You might feel it with your hand slightly, but once the leather's on there it's not actually noticeable once it's done. So I'm just trimming this bit of leather. This leather that I've got here was supposed to be 1mm, but it's slightly thicker, so it's a little bit harder to form. But having said that, the thicker stuff does feel quite nice when it's on there. It feels a lot more robust, but it's harder to form it round the seat and all the edges, particularly the nose and the back corners of the seat. I'm just going to cover up the rails underneath a little bit. I don't always do this. It just saves any of the spray from the aerosol adhesive going all over it, and you know, just covers it a little bit. You can wipe most of it off, which I do anyway with the seats, and I will need to again on this because I'll have to apply more later on, but it just saves it a little bit whilst I'm moving it around. So this is now fast forward a little bit. You need to let the glue tack off on both pieces before you do this, just so it grabs quickly. You don't want to be pulling it on and off loads of times. You want to be getting it fitted within a couple of times, really. You don't want to put it on, pull it off, you know, say 4 or 5 times. You'll end up running the risk of pulling the foam off and the adhesive won't be as strong. So you need to be getting it down like 1 or 2 times at the most, really, and then just stretching it as you're doing it. Once I put the seat on the piece of leather to start with, I always start either at the front or the back and then just pull it the opposite way, and then that helps them pull the sides around, if that makes sense. And you can see there the shape came together quite well without doing too much there. And now I'm just stretching it around the rest of the seat, around the nose. Again, the nose is always the most trickiest part. I say it on all the videos because it's so tight and you've got to get the wrinkles out and pull it around. That's why sort of 1mm leather is best when you're doing it, because it does form around better. Now this isn't, you know, I made it sound like it was really thick, this leather. It's only just slightly thicker than 1mm, so it isn't too bad. It just means that you've got to pull it around a little bit more when you're forming it. So just continuing to work all the way around, just, you know, being careful, making sure you're getting any wrinkles out. And now I'm just going to apply a little bit more adhesive around the seat. Again, just trying to be careful not to get it everywhere. You don't want it over everything. And if you do get it on your hands, I recommend wiping your hands off. If you've got something like a solvent-based degreaser, something like that, you can just clean your hands off in between doing it. You don't want to be touching too much with the glue on your hands. You run the risk of taking any sort of top coatings off the leather if you stick to it. So just to be on the safe side, you're better off just cleaning it as you go along. So that's a bit more trimmed off there. It makes it a little bit more easier to work with. Now, you want to keep it a little bit bigger to start with. It just helps it pull it round. But once you start getting to this point and you want to start tucking it under, you need to start trimming the excess off. And again, with the trimming, I would probably say be a little bit safe. Don't trim quite enough to start with. I've made the mistake of trimming too much and then you have troubles trying to tuck it round. So you're better off leaving it a little bit prouder and then going around and trimming it a little bit more if you need to. And now just tucking it in using, well, again, using a screwdriver, which I always say, don't use anything sharp on all the videos. And then the thing that's always closest to me is a screwdriver. So ideally you want to be using something like a, you know, firm sort of plastic tool that you can just push in the edges. It's not so bad doing it, what I'm doing here with the screwdriver, but you obviously have that risk of puncturing through the leather, which you don't want to do. Once you do that, you're knackered. Obviously it's underneath, it's hidden, it's not so bad, but I've done it on, and you know, obviously I've not learned my lesson. Most of the time it's me being lazy and not wanting to go back out in the garage and grabbing a tool that's better for it. I just grab this, it's closer, and obviously I'm being careful when I'm doing it. So just going around now, trimming a little bit more excess off the back. Again, I'm being probably a little bit more cautious. It will need a little bit more when it's stuck down, and then a little bit more glue to go on there. So you can keep applying glue as much as you want. You want to let it tack off in between. It then grabs quicker. You can manipulate it around a little bit with the glue softer, but the problem is with it, it doesn't stick down quick enough. And yeah, I suppose you get a little bit of, I don't know, it allows you then to sort of move it around before it finally sticks, but the problem is you need it to stick down as you're forming it round to get it right. So you're better off letting it tack first before you push it down and start sticking it, you know, and forming it round. That's the way I always do it, and I find it a lot better. So you can see I'm just carefully working around all the corners, just lifting it up again if I need to, just making sure to get most, if not all, of the wrinkles that are shown on the back, the sides and the top of the seat. And just using the tool then to push it down. Now with these sections, you'll see there's a trim that covers it and holds it down, which is ideal. It makes, you know, this a lot easier to do. You don't have to be quite so particular with getting the wrinkles out. You don't want any thick wrinkles because the trim won't go on properly, but it doesn't matter if they don't look quite so good because they're all covered up with the trim. I don't like leaving it looking rough underneath as much as I can. Sometimes it's inevitable with what material you're using, but I try to make it look as tidy as possible. So now just fitting that front trim and just going around and putting the screws back in. Again, this will hold that leather in place as well, just give it that extra piece of hold than just the glue. And I'm just going around with a little bit of solvent-based degreaser, just cleaning off any of the excess glue. I'm not going to go too mad with it at this point because I don't want to be making any of the leather wet, and then that'll release the glue that's underneath. So I'm just going around just cleaning that sort of middle area, and now just trimming off some of the leather around where the trims are screwed down. And now I can get both those side trims fitted. Again, it's ideal with these little trims in place. I haven't gone too mad with tidying these trims up. They've got a few little marks on them. In the future I probably will take them off and try and do something with them, but at the moment I'm just going to put them on as they are, and they look alright. They've only got a few sort of minor scuff marks on them. And now I've got the heat press vinyl to go on there, which I've made. So this is just made out of, like I say, the heat press vinyl, and then cut, and then you just transfer it over with the iron using some heat proof paper as a barrier, and then just pressing it on. Ideally with the heat press vinyl you would normally use a heat press, hence the name, or heat transfer vinyl I think it's called, to be honest. But anyway, yeah, so you'd normally use a press, but obviously with a seat you can't do that so easily, so use the iron and just keep on going over it. You don't want to go too mad and sort of ruin the heat vinyl, but you need it enough to stick it down. Sometimes it's best to do this not straight after fitting the leather, because you get quite a lot of sort of residue coming through from leathers. I think it's like the oils come through. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't, depending on the leather. So you just need to be a bit careful with that. Sometimes they don't stick quite as well. But yeah, that's it. Job done. As you can see, it's come out really well. I'm really happy with this one. I really do like this seat. I'm going to be fitting this to my GT STS. I've got a Cell Italia Flight Titanium on there at the moment, but I just wanted to change it because I'm going to use that on another project. So yeah, all done. Let me know what you think. I think it's come out really well. Thanks again for taking the time to watch the video as always. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.